We got less than 3 weeks to New York. Training's been good. Did a little session yesterday, and just getting some easy miles in today. Hop on beautiful Boulder, Colorado. This is the part of town I'd live in if I won Boston and New York like 4 times each. So right now we're just visiting, but you know, someday everything light touches will be my kingdom.
Is this your first New York build solo?
Yeah. It's been fine, you know. Boston was solo, New York is solo. Probably just be solo for the rest of my life now, and you know, sometimes you gotta do stuff alone. It's not a big deal. And I think at the level I'm at now, there's not like a ton of people in the country that I could like train with, and Joe's pretty particular about.
We got car back, Chris.
I think I'd like to be able to compete a little bit better up front. Last time in New York, I had to check off pretty early, and I was sort of picking people off in the second half.
Pick it up a little bit, Chris.
Same thing at the last Boston. Hopefully the race plays out where those guys don't go crazy up front and I can kind of hang in there. And I think the fitness is there to run aggressively, to try to run up front. But, you know, that's something we're gonna have to make some good decisions on race day. In terms of preparation, mileage has been a little higher. I think the paces have looked a little bit better than Boston, but we've had way better conditions, so it's sort of hard to tell. I don't know. I think we're in a good spot. Not too worried about what that means in terms of like a number on the page. I think whatever the paces are in New York, should kind of be able to handle it and should be prepared for just some of the challenges.
Yeah.
And just want to compete a little bit better up front, I think. Yeah, I think the marathon is such a long event that it's really hard to do alone.
Right.
And so when the pack splinters, if you're not capable of going up front, then typically the American pack is pretty close together, and some guys are running over their heads even in the second pack, and some guys are running, you know, correct sort of pacing. But it does help to have some people with you and some people to work with. It's not so much a prize money thing, at least not for me. I don't think about that in the race, but you know, the way it works out usually at these majors, if you can be the top American, you're almost always in the top 7. Last year Alcana with the top American, he was 4th place. So I don't know that it's a good way to like go into the race saying you want to be the top American. It feels you're kind of putting a cap on yourself, and
Right.
it's sort of a race within a race, sort of making it more complicated than it needs to be. But I think it's a good way to gauge how well you're running in the race. Top American usually does pretty well, so
Right.
you know, it's one thing you can look at. A lot of Americans are pretty close together right now, but I'd like to just be placed really high. I'd rather be, you know, 4th overall and 2nd American than 6th overall and top American. No, not at all. Just going in there and rolling with the punches. Could be fast, could be slow. Not too worried about it. Chicago. I think you saw the benefit of having groups, you know, being with people. Connor Mance ran great, you know. He got to be in a group and racing people for like 30K. Good group of Americans, right around went out right in the 105 range. A couple of them broke 210. And that's just like a way more efficient, a way more fun, a way more free way to run the marathon. than someone like Pat Tiernan, who sort of broke away, trying to do stuff alone, and faded. Pat's got all the talent in the world, and he's gonna figure it out, and he's gonna run a really fast marathon. But trying to do it alone is just adding too much to your plate.
Right.
I think there'll probably be a circumstance where I have to do that at some point. I soloed the last 11-ish miles at Boston, but you can't really do 42K completely solo. It's just too long. I think as I've gotten older, it's definitely, I don't feel like I have to do as much in training. I think I trust my abilities a little bit more. I don't feel like I need to go win New York every time out. Good dog. I think being in the races a few times is helps too. Like, it's a skill to run a world marathon major, especially one that's not paced. They're just weird. They're just really weird. You have weird pace surges. You have like weird swings in people, just like kind of quitting and kind of giving up. It's like a tough thing to know that you're gonna move up at the end. Have faith in yourself over the last 10K. And I think it's mostly, I'm much more secure in myself as a very good marathoner, and I have a lot more faith that it's just gonna go well. It's just gonna go well. I don't know what that means time-wise, I don't know what that means place-wise, but I'm gonna go run well. And I think I believe that more fully now than maybe earlier in my career. Yeah, I still really like this. I still really enjoy it. I know that I'm almost certainly in the second half of my career. I'll be 31 on race day. And it's not impossible to run well after that, but you know, sort of getting towards, my chances are starting to count down. And that's fine. I don't stress over like maybe not someday achieving my biggest, loftiest, like someday I want to win Boston, someday I want to win New York, need to make an Olympic team sort of goals. Those might happen, those might not happen.
Right.
But I still really enjoy the process. It's been like being here in Boulder and being completely focused on just training for this one thing, and it's been fun and it's been gratifying, and like, you know, I haven't had any days where it's like I just don't want to do this. I'm getting out the door, I'm doing it with enthusiasm, I'm doing my rehab, I'm doing my mobility, and there's still joy there. So even if I don't like accomplish the rest of my goals, if I can be joyful in running for the next 4 or 5 years, like, that's a huge success. And especially if I'm able to be joyful in running, have some success, and then go out on my own terms, like, what more can you ask for? That'll be an awesome career. On easy runs, I usually listen to podcasts, so mostly gambling podcasts, mostly sports podcasts. I'm thinking about lines, I'm thinking about overthinking lines, I'm thinking about bets, and then I go and I lose money. And so what happens? I do my research, I listen to the pods, I look at the lines, I check the injury reports, and then I lose at like an unexplainable amount.
Beat up a little bit.
Hilly course. 3 big bridges. Finished at Central Park. A lot of hills at the end. I'd say the over-under, first half split for the men, I'm gonna set it at like 65 minutes. Okay. That seems like reasonable. It'll probably go under, but I think there's a chance it's slow. It was last year. Winning time in New York.
Scott Fauble, top American.
Scott Fauble, top American.
Minus 110.
Probably, oh yeah, love minus 110 odds. I'd say I'm probably plus 750.
Okay.
Like you got Galen and Lenny, who I think most people would put in front of me.
In running though, like we saw it in Worlds, not a lot of negative odds.
No, not a lot of negative odds.
Almost never.
No. Well, the thing about running is since it's a niche sport, since people don't know about it, there's so much dumb money that comes in just based on name recognition. You know, I think Sydney was like minus 10,000 to win the 400 hurdles, which she did, but she had to go over like 30 hurdles, you know? Like Femke Bol and Dahlia Muhammad were like plus 250, plus 300. That means that like plus 300 means 1 out of 4 times she wins. Implied probability.
That was my approach to the Olympics and it didn't work. I was betting on all of the high risk events.
Yeah.
Of fouls, the pole vault for not clearing, high jump not clearing, all of the hurdle events, especially the 110s.
Yeah.
And it didn't work.
No. I mean, there's a reason these people are favorites, but when you're betting someone who's like plus 600, plus 700, they're not gonna, that bet doesn't win. It doesn't win very often. It's only supposed to win 1 out of 7 times or 1 out of 8 times. So I think your process was right. I just think you got a bad draw. That being said, as I said before, I'm a bad gambler, so.
It didn't discourage me.
No. Marvin Bracey to medal though, plus 1,000.
Was
Cashed
it?
it.
Whoa.
Can Chris do a U-turn?
Well, we'll see.
Oh. Probably like 45 seconds. I mean, it's just Boston's heading downhill and there's like a lot of really fast miles. The reason people don't run well there isn't because the course is slow. It's because they don't train right for it. So when they can't take advantage of the miles that are really hard, that are really fast rather. New York is, I think, less rhythmic. There's 800 feet of climbing. The road conditions are worse, just given the number of streets you're on and the different city. And it's just a harder course. So it's also a harder race. I don't think, harder race in terms of you just need to be better at the marathon. You can't be as aggressive as early. The last 4 miles are really hard, as opposed to in Boston where the last 5 miles, you know, they're kind of gas. So I think just straight up, it's maybe 40 seconds to a minute difference. But I think the bigger challenge is just like knowing yourself, trusting yourself, finding the sort of conservative, aggressive flow. Yeah, I don't. It's just a little different. I think if you can get through the Bronx in the lead pack, you have a shot to win. I don't know what that time will be. It can be so many different things, but if you can get to 21, like in the lead group, I think you've got a chance. It's really hard last 4 miles, but at that point it's like you either have the legs or you don't. There's not really decisions to be made. It's just sort of gas, fast as you can go, covering moves. And it's just whether or not you're tough enough, whether or not you have the legs those last 4 miles. So if you can get through the Bronx, I think you got a shot. That's my thinking. I don't necessarily think you're wrong. I think
Is it just
I think
that
your
hard?
tank is aging poorly.
Yeah.
I think pre-super shoes, that's probably the case. You could have one good marathon, and good has changed. Back then, good was maybe 210 to 212. If you could run in the 210, 211 range, you were good. But I don't think people trained correctly for like long-term success in the marathon. The way you get good in the marathon is not with VO2 reps. It's not with like speed. It's with getting really, really, really good and really, really efficient at and a little bit below marathon pace. So I think that's much, much easier to accomplish with Pebax foam and carbon plates. And so I think you're gonna see people have longer careers, less injuries, more cracks of the apple. But the bar's also moved up. So now good is 209, 208, 207. And I also think one thing the shoes have allowed people to do is make the mistakes by running too much 10K pace in practice because they're not paying the muscular toll that they used to when we were basically doing this in like minimalist shoes. And also I think 26 miles has gotten easier on the body with the new shoes. So I think you're right in the sense that it's pretty easy if you have a lot of chances to run one good marathon. It's hard to be consistently great, but I think that's changing. And I think people are figuring it out too a little bit. And I think there was this sort of thing in the past where because the bar for good, being good was kind of lower, it was top 10 at a major, it was 212. People were trying to run to that bar, but now, you know, I'm pretty, you know, now like people like Galen, people like Lenny, Connor Mance now, they pushed the bar higher. Elkanah last year at New York was 4th. So people are trying to run to the new bar. And I think that has elevated the level of American men's marathoning. And we saw it with the women too. You know, when Shalane and Des and Amy Cragg and, you know, these women came on the scene maybe 10 years ago and started competing up front. I think it's sort of changed the standard to which a lot of competitors held themselves. I think he's done good workouts. I think he's done a little bit too much stuff that's too fast. He should be running a little slower in his workouts and a little longer. And I don't think he's done enough volume. So I think he's gonna run like 220.
He can't
But
prove
that's
his,
gonna depend greatly on how hard he tries.
he can't prove his point though if he runs too much.
Yeah, well, kind of catch-22 there.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. I'm for my own sake, for my agenda that I'm trying to push. I need him to catch one of those good ones.
Yeah. Well, it's rarely your first one. Like, you gotta figure out the event a little bit. I think if he runs like Chicago next year and trains for a year and they get good weather, I mean, he can run in the 217s. That's not gonna be an issue, but it's a hard event to figure out. All my workouts.
Is that training runs or just workouts?
Just workouts and long runs.
It's crazy. I think does almost everything.
Yeah. I don't think that's good for your lower legs. Like it's like the whole point is that they like generate more force into the ground, so you're springing off, but that force has to go somewhere back, you know?
Yeah. I think there's been like an uptick in, is it knee injuries?
Knee injuries.
Over the last couple of years?
Yeah, and like Haglund's, like everybody's got Haglund's now. Hard to believe that just now people started like actually having that deformity. But the Achilles is like taking more load from the shoes, I think. Well, I don't know what percentage of my income goes to gambling, but I think just prize money, 25 to 30K. That doesn't include appearance fees, because there was someone who beat me in New York who tested positive last time. When I had 7th in 2019, 2 of the people ahead of me have tested positive. And then when I got 7th in this last one, 2022, 1 person. So 4 people. You know, there's talk of Boston redistributing prize money after the 2021 doper, or the 2021 champ. So hopefully that continues. Like they apply that same logic to the 2022 race. Would not mind a little bump, but it shouldn't be on, like, it's not on Boston to make us whole. Like, they're not a rules enforcement organization, but unfortunately, like, WADA doesn't have the teeth or really, I think, the incentive or the will to like claw back prize money or redistribute it.
You're wise with your money. How much have you spent on this finish line? Because, I mean, you have to get a place out here for 12 weeks.
Yeah. You know, it hasn't been cheap by any means, but I made a good chunk at Boston, and I have a good appearance fee from New York, so the way I see it, that's kind of like part of that money is supposed to go to helping you train, since it's not like I can have a full fall racing season where I'm racing 3 or 4 times and making a couple $1,000 here and there. So I don't know, you know, I'm a small business, so sometimes you have to put money into the business to get money out later. That's not to say I don't want a sponsor. Would love it. Any sports marketing managers who are watching this, Josh Cox, hit him up. I'm sure you have his number. I think New York's gonna go really well.
Investors? Possibly you.
Investors, possibly you.